So I think that is it. Susan, do you have any exceptional check-in, like any concern you have received from the team before we start?
No, I haven't, but I'm checking on the group.
Okay, it's fine. So I think that is it. So I'm sharing my screen. Hope I don't know whether it is visible enough. Okay. Now, when you go to your shared folder, you'll find a folder written on, I think we all have access to it. That is logistics, yes, and I think that is the folder, if I'm not mistaken. It's here. So that's the name, logistics, yes, and so I think this document, this folder has been there for ages. So we created a folder called data analysis training. So it is in that folder where we're going to be putting all these documents. So you see there is a document we are going to be using for attendancy, for the course outline, some of the supporting links. I will always put them here, like how you can download some of the documents, some of the softwares like Power BI, some of the recommendation you can do an extension in your reading. I'll put here all the links. That's why I called it supporting links. Then I put some of the dashboards I've worked with at some point, some of the projects I've done. You can click on and preview, but I will be including more. Then the course outline, here it is. We took some time to review this, but in case you review and you feel like there is something you need to add in, you can always communicate on WhatsApp group. We shall come and add, we shall come always and add on the schedules. So today we are going to look at the basic Excel, and I will take you through the statistical functions. So we have all worked with statistical functions, but at some point we feel like we don't exhaust enough, or at some point we deal with data, which we find that we get we get limited to function. So you find that you are limited to a few functions you know by yourself, yet there is a wider range of functions in Excel, 1 million of them. So today I'm going to take you through the count, the sum if, the average and ifs, the maximum and ifs, the minimum. Then I know it is interactive. You can raise always your hand and break the session, ask your question. It is interactive. You don't have to go with questions, yet it is what has brought us here. So I will mute my video such that some people can have better streaming wherever you are. Okay. So I've got a file we shall work with. It's raw. So I've tried to get a file that is raw we are going to use, because it is all about data analysis. You don't always expect to get a report you are used to. That's why I never wanted to ask for any report we can work with. Then we can feel it when we are starting off the analysis. So I'm going to start off with the count function. So always when you're dealing with data, there are three things we consider. It is called always ETL. I will share a document that explains more about ETL. ETL, E stands for extraction, T stands for transformation, and L stands for load or loading. So those are the three steps you have to always think about when you have data to deal with. So extraction means that where do you get your report? You can't work with a report which you don't have. So we have the system that is Logon, SAP Zonda. So extraction is first understand how you get the data. You can't just go in SAP and run a report. You can't just go in Hodim and run a report when you don't know what the output is going to be. So if I ask you an analysis from SAP, you don't go to Hodim, which means you already have a mindset of extraction. Which data do I need to extract for the report that has been requested for? That is number one. You have to always to understand that if I'm to get to analyze data, I have to extract it. Even if it is a database, I know when we reach the advanced level of it, we are going to look at how do you extract that data. So when you extract data and it is done, you have put it in an Excel. We always use spreadsheets to work out with data. So the only spreadsheets I know which are widely known, that is Excel and Google Sheets. We call them spreadsheets. So when that data is extracted, you transform it. Now the transforming is what is widely consisting of functions and formulas. So when we come to when you click on your Excel, you'll check on the data tab. The data tab is always having. I remember I had told you that we are going to use Excel 2019. I think tomorrow will be ready with my personal laptop, which has Excel 2019. So when you go to data, you'll always find here getting query, Power Query. So all the bits you find here will always be part of the extraction for you to get that data. Then after getting the data, we transform it. So transforming it, there is this tab that is having formulas. All this tab, 90% of what is here, we use it for transformation of data. So we are going to look at more of the formulas. When you come to the formula bit, you'll find these are the statistical functions where you find some average, count, maximum, and there are more of those. Then when you come to recent, these ones at least you have used them before. Then there is financial. For now, we shall pick one or two as we go on from the finance or financial functions, but there are very many, they are there. And at some point, you'll also meet them wherever data you'll be dealing with. But for now, we may not dwell on them. Then we have logical. These ones, logical, we use them a lot. And Excel is adding more functions every hour and then. So they are logical functions which you'll always need to test your data when you're transforming it. Transforming data is like if I give you data and I tell you, please, I've given you a date, but create a column for month, create a column for year, which means you're going to extract those two from the column I've given you for date, let's say this. So I'll give you a date like this and I tell you, please, I need you to analyze for me this data by month. You're not going to use this date to do by month when you have not transformed it. That's what we call transformation. So before you go ahead with coming up with your reports, you have to put in mind that you always have to transform your data. Transformation involves cleaning, and we also use formulas for cleaning. On top of that, we use Power Query, which you'll check under data in 2019 or 2016. Then when you come to their text formulas, these ones we deal with these formulas when we are mostly cleaning data or when you're searching for something in data. We are going to use a lot of them. So how do we use the text functions? There are text functions like left, right, length, lower, mid. I will give you data and I tell you that, please, I need the names in capital letters. You're not going to retype those names. The only thing you're going to do, you're going to just insert a formula that is called either proper, or you insert a formula that is called uppercase, and then just a click away, you'll have all the names in capital letters. You'll have all the names in lowercase when you use search. We are going to do a lot of splitting, like splitting dates, as I've told you, splitting a month, splitting a year. You'll find that we shall be using like a text function. You'll be given data that has spaces. Those people who have dealt with data from ODIM, there is data you get that has spaces that your formulas or functions cannot see as if it is a number or not. We have always converted them. We are going to look at that, how you convert a text into a value. Then from there, we are going to look at date function. It is even part of our schedule function. All these functions that are related with date, you use them on a daily basis, or you need them on a daily basis, even if you have never used them. It is after these sessions where you find the purpose or the importance of why you didn't even learn this before. So every function you see here has its own purpose. I'll be sharing the notes for every function. Then after that, we have the lookup and reference. Lookup and reference, here people know only VLOOKUP. I think, if I guess right, people only know VLOOKUP, but there are a lot of them. There is transposing, there is making unique, there is offsetting, there is matching, a lot of them. Every function has a purpose where it works. So when you understand the functions you have at hand in Excel, you'll always find that work is easy, or running reports or running data is always easy. The major thing is to learn how these functions work. That is what we call the syntax. Like if I put a function, what are the steps? What are the steps I have to follow? What do I pick first? Then there are math and trigonometrical functions, which we may look into, like rounding off, like sum ifs, like decimal. We use it a lot. Like if you have data that is coming through with variable decimal, some data comes with 4 decimals, others put in 3 decimal, someone else has input 2 decimal, and you want it to be under a uniform decimal, you can always command it with a formula. Commanding all your data with a formula, meaning that it means that you have made it dynamic. It doesn't mean that you're wasting time, because someone else will tell me, but when I come here home, I always have something to do here with putting, reducing decimals and increasing decimals. But this one, you do it manually once when you access. But if you put a formula, it means that it is dynamic. Even every data that adds on, it will be running with the same formatting of a function you have put. Then there are more functions which are not maybe segregated under these groupings, which we may not look at very much, but just bringing it to your notice that they are there. So don't get scared of the many, just get a few you need. Learn slowly, slowly. You'll find out that every function, at least you know how to use it and when it is required for use. Okay, I think the speaking I've done a lot. You'll go ahead and look into those tabs if you have never taken time to look into those tabs. Like the formula tab, it has a lot. You can tell your formula you have put, which are its precedents, which are its dependents. Dependence means that if I put A1 plus A2, A1 and A2 are dependent to the solution you're getting or to the answer you got. So you can always tell that you can check errors. If you have been shared with a document at a certain level, you may not be doing the data analysis, but people will share with you reports. How do you check for errors? How do you check that people are not fixing data? We may have agreed that, I will increase on font. We may agree that this column is going to run with functions, but you'll find that someone else, because he has got, or he needs to fix this number, he will come and input it manually. It means that you who is reviewing data, you who requested for the report, you have to be having the knowledge that I can always make a rough check that someone has not skipped anything somewhere, where others are formulas, but there is a number just input, which will never change. So we shall do that on error checkings. We shall do that to check for formulas and to check for precedence and dependence. I've always been called by some people where someone tells me that I'm putting formulas, but it is not updating. The value remains the same. So there is this calculation option. Excel always makes it possible for you that it is automatic. But the moment someone will ever put it manual, you'll put a formula and it will not update. You'll feel like you're getting wrong answers. No, you can always come to calculations and put it back to automatic. So, or you can come always and say calculate now. It will always update your report or your sheet with the current standings of the formulas it has. So you take note that always when you have such errors or such standoffs where you can't see your data updating, you have put a formula right, but the value stays the same. You can always have a checks this side. So that is just a by the way. Then we have advanced formula environment, which Excel has added. We shall look at that when we reach the artificial intelligence bit, where you give your data to Excel and Excel will tell you the narration. By the way, Pozzolana this week has been more than last week because track this brought 4 trips than 3 trips which it shipped last week. Those narrations which we need just when you can't explain the data using you the human, the artificial intelligence now can do the explanation for you. So we shall look at that bit later, but for today, we are going to look at these functions. So we shall go through one function by one. I show you how it works, and I will be telling you the pros and the cons of using such functions. Okay, for the start, as I've told you, we are going to look at statistical functions. Now, with statistical functions, we shall start with the count. So going to our table, I will call this, I will put here session. And if there is anything, any question, you can always raise it in such a break. Now, when you're to enter any function in Excel, we start with equal signs. So when you do equal signs, and after the equal signs, it will not give you any prompt. But when you start typing any letter, let's say I type a C, Excel will always tell me what I may think or I may want to type. So I will go ahead and type the word count. Now, we all know that count is count, but the count is split in more than 3 ways, or 4 I can say. So we always have count. We have count A. We have count blanks. We have count if. We have count ifs. So these are the 4 or 5 things we are going to look at. So I'm going to ship data from this side. I'm going to get data we can use from this side. So I'll copy some data. We can take even the numbers like this. So here we go. Let's use this data for our today's. We shall start with count as I've already said. So now, count, you can do a lot of count. You can, it will depends always on the output. As I've already told you, you extract, you transform, you load. Before you know what you're going to load, what are you going to extract? You don't extract anything, you don't know the output. You don't know the report that I've requested for, then you don't know the data you're going to use. You don't know the report that I've requested for, then you don't know how you're going to transform it, how you're going to clean it up, how you're going to analyze it. So now here you always come up with a scenario, which we are going to come up with a scenario. So I will say, we want to count these entries. We have picked out these entries and someone has asked you, please count for us. How many entries do you have in your report? I will use maybe the terminologies we are used to. Count for us how many trips you have received today, maybe at the web bridge. Which means if I download a report, that is now the extraction. If I download a report for today, which means when I do a count of those transactions, that is the data they need. That is the report someone needs, which means you can count this manually by selecting the whole of this, and always at the bottom here, it will tell you the number. So it will tell me that they are 32. But what if they were more than 10,000? And will I be doing the same every day? So there is where you will need a function to use in such a scenario. So we are starting with count, which means if they've told us to count the entries, I will do count. You open the brackets. The option of opening the brackets is pressing a tab on your keyboard. If you have a book, you can note some of the things. When you press a tab, it will always open for your bracket. Then it is asking me the values we are going to count. The values we are going to count, I want to count a range. So you can count a range using any of the columns. But in data, every table or every data you deal with, it always has a column that stands out as a unique identifier or a primary field. A primary field or a unique identifier is a field you know that in this field, I don't have blanks. Like if it is a web bridge report, you'll know that every trip has to have a track number. If it doesn't have a track number, then that's an error. But every trip has to have a track number. But it is not a must that every trip will have a supplier, because some of them are XWorks maybe, or DDP, where we don't have a dedicated supplier attached to that trip, maybe from procurement level. So at this moment, I'm taking my first column, maybe my first column to be a unique identifier, which means I trust it. It is my primary field I will be referring to. So, which means I'll come and select this. So if you are counting, you select a range. So there are many ways how we select ranges. So when you select the first cell, you can always put semicolons and go ahead and drag this one downwards. Then another option is you always, before you put the first cell, you just drag using your mouse like this up to the end. Holding your cursor, that is a left, I think a left click, holding it down and dragging up to the end. But now we imagine if this was up to 10,000, it means you can't drag. I have seen people dragging their mouse until it leaves the table. It goes in air. because it's dragging a lot of data. So from today, we can no longer do that way. There is another option which is quicker. You always select the first cell, press a Control and Shift on your keyboard. A Control and Shift on your keyboard, then you press the downward arrow. You know you have 4 arrows on your right hand of the keyboard, down, up, left, right. So if we want to select up to the bottom, you first click in the first cell, Control Shift, then you click on the downward arrow. It will run up to the end. So that's what I've done on my keyboard. You'll try it out. If you want to count horizontally, I will click on this, then you press Control Shift right arrow. It will run up to the last part of that row. So if I want to select the whole of this table, I will first select the whole row, then Control Shift down arrow, I will select the whole of my table. Very easy. So we can always do that. Now here it means that I'm counting entries, all entries, which means every cell will be standing for a 1. So that's how we do it. If there is any question, please, we can go ahead. So if we are counting entries, then I'll select that Control Shift down arrow. Then the next thing is closing bracket. But Excel these days has been advanced that even if you don't close the bracket, you can just enter, it will close the bracket for you. So the moment I enter, it will give me a 0. There is a reason why we are going to differentiate why it is giving a 0, and the next why we can always use another that doesn't give a 0. Now, why is it giving a 0? Because count is always made for numericals. It doesn't count alphabet. It doesn't count strings. Strings, I mean where you find numbers and alphabets. Now, why we are having a 0 here? Because we are trying to count alphabets. These are not numbers. That's why I pulled this. Now we are going to use instead E. Now here I'll say these are alphabets. So with count, you get 0 because count doesn't work for alphabets. It works for numerals. So if we do equals count and we select this time numbers, Control Shift down arrow and enter, it will give me the 32. So I hope you get the difference that when you use the count, it doesn't count numbers. Now, we move to the next. This is the count A. The count A. Now, count A, still it is the same thing. You'll say equals to count A. When you're still typing, it will always bring for you the option. So it is at your own pace to go and select that option. How do you select the option? The shortcut, you can use your arrow keys to move down. Then you use your tab to select that option you have reached on. Or you can use your cursor, reach there, double click on it, it will open. Now, count A, for it, it will help us always, it counts both alphabets and numbers. For it, it counts both alphabets and numbers. So here I will do still, let me run it with the first row, Control Shift downward, enter. This time it is giving me the 32 because I've used count A. Still, we do the same on the numerals, on the numbers. So when you do equals to count A, we count the numbers like this, enter, it will give me 32. So, which means it is always advisable to use count A instead of count when you're counting your records. So in whichever spreadsheet you're using, when you are counting your records, it is always better to use count A than using count. I think you get the difference now. It means that if there is any person here who was calling himself, let's say 256, it means that this is the number. So when we come to count, you see that it has counted this person as 1. Yet we are supposed to get 32, but the 32 were numerals. This is when we are considering numerals. So we are supposed to get 32, you're getting 1 because there was a number. But you see that count A is still counting 32, even though we have put 256. Now, when I remove this and leave it blank, I don't know whether you see the changes that are happening. So when you leave it blank, count A will skip the blank, which means if I always want to count my data that has been filled in, I don't want to main on anything that has been partially filled in. It means count A also still works for me. It is not going to count the blanks. Even if these records were 32, it means one person has not yet filled the record right, which means I'll go with 31 records as complete.
Sorry to interrupt, but I think Susan can mute this guy of Samsung. He's making some noise.
Susan, you can mute anyone who has not raised their hand not to distort our recording. Thank you. Okay. So that's the difference we have between count and count A. So from today and onwards, I feel like you all know now the pros of using count A and using just count. So if you are told to count the records, count A is the best option because it will count both the numerals and the alphabets. But again, on another bit, if you don't want to count the numerals, it is also another now extensive call you can take. Which formula am I supposed to use? Now, that is it. Now, we are going to look at another function that is related to count. That is count blanks. So, just a moment. So here we are looking at count blanks. Now, I may request for a report and tell me that, you know, we have a tracker that people are filling in. Please count for me how many people haven't filled in their data. The only function you're going to use is count blanks. Quickly, one click away, it will be giving you how many people have not filled in their data. It will give you the blanks. So we are going to do the same. I will remove some data here. I've removed 2. So when we come to count blanks, it will be equals to count blanks, which is this. Then I will select my range up to the end, like that, enter. It will tell me that I have 2 blanks. So there and then I will tell someone who wanted the report, you know what? We have, because I used the even count A, we have 20 people filled in their data and 2 people have not filled in their data. Count A wouldn't have told us how many blanks we have because they are blanks. It didn't count them. But when you include count blanks, it will give you the number of blanks that you have in your data, depending on which range you have chosen. So let's try to choose the whole table. Let's count everything in the whole table and we see how many blanks we have. So count blanks. So I will click on this first one, Control Shift on the right. Still, when I've pressed the Control Shift down, now you see where it has stopped after doing the down arrow. It stopped exactly where the blank stopped from. It means that when you're cleaning your data, you always have to put that into context. You may put filters on your report or on your table. Those filters may not run the whole data because they are blank somewhere where the filters stopped from. So take it from me that if I put filters on this table, it will be filtering up to 13. So at the end of the day, we have to continue running this up to the bottom, which is already, we know that our data runs up to 35. You can always even input this manually to make sure that you capture everything right. So if I count that, it will give me 2 blanks. So in the whole of this data, I have 2 blanks. So if I go deleting data randomly like this, you see the number of blanks are increasing. So that's how it is. It counts for you the blanks. Then we shall move on another one, which is count if. Now we have count if and count ifs. So count if, I will have it here independent. Now, count if is a combination of 2 functions, ideally, the if function and the count function. The if function is part of the logical, then the count function is part of the statistical, but Excel helped us not to struggle combining the 2. It gave us the 2 combined at once. Now, in which instance you use count if, which means when you have a summary of a report or a summary of, you're having a summary where you're picking out the metrics. Let's say now here we have the states. So the next time we shall use the data we are used to, I think I will tell Susan always to share data. So here we are having, I'm going to have a summary of this. So let me pick our data. I'm going to do, just don't mind on this, I'm just picking data. Okay, these are the states we are having. Let me paste values to remove that on our report. Paste values, okay. So we'll move this here. Now, you have been told to count how many people live in these states. So, first of all, we have states and cities. We shall look at that. But you have been asked to count how many people live in these states. So, the only way how you can count this is when you use another terminology or another function that is count if. So, how do we do it? We do it like this. So you say equals to, now with count if, which is going to be different from, I can put here count ifs, which is going to be different from count ifs. Ifs has a plural. If has 1, it is looking at singular, a check. So when you are checking only for states, it means that you don't need ifs, but still ifs can work here. We are going to look at that. Now, if I want to count all the, I don't know whether these are staff or employees, all the employees that live in those states, it means I'm going to use count if. So I will start equals to count if, open the brackets. Now it is asking me for the range. Automatically the range is this column I'm working with. So if you feel that your column runs up to the bottom, you're not having other things at the bottom, you can always even select the whole column D, because we are looking at specific terminologies which we are comparing, or cities, or states. So you can always do by selecting the whole column. But to be specific, you can always put the range, which is from D4 to D35, because we already know our data runs up to 35. Here it is. So that is always the first, on the syntax, that is always the first input. Actually, when you're writing functions, it will always show here the syntax, what is next. So when I put a comma, it asks for the criteria. What are you comparing? Which criteria are you looking at? I will just come and click on this. Don't type it, but click on that. Since it is already a static parameter, I will enter. So the moment I enter, it gives me 2. It means that in this data for these employees, I have only 2 employees who live in this city. That's why it is giving me a 2. So you can go ahead and fill down this. What is filling down? Filling down a function or a formula is bringing your cursor at right at the bottom, right bottom of that cell. Always the cursor will change to black, which we call it a crosshair cursor. So when it changes to black, you drag this one up to the bottom. It will always copy your formula with the correct references. As how you have referenced it. Now, something I wanted you to note out. You see that this reference, the moment you drag down, even it drags the range. The moment you move down, it moves the range. So at some point you find that we are missing out this data. We are not having this data. So what do we do when you're dealing with ranges? So when you add up this, it doesn't add up to 32. It is 31. So what are we missing out? At some point you may be right, but always have this check in control. So when you're dealing with ranges, I have to lock this range because I want this range to be a constant. Even if I drag this one up to the bottom, it is only this reference that will always change from G9 to G10 going downwards. So how do we lock this? We put $signs. Locking the column and locking the row. D is a column, 4 is a row. D is a column, 35 is a row. So we lock the column and we lock the row. Locking, we mean in Excel, we insert a $sign like this. But imagine if you have a range that is having more than 5 references of cells. Do you put $signs one by one? No, you don't put $signs one by one. What do we do? You select that range, then you press a button on your keyboard called F4. There is a button called a function button called F4. It is always at the top. If you're using a laptop, you'll have to press either Shift F4 or there is another button called function, which is FN on your laptop. FN stands for function. So some laptops, they require you to press that FN, then you press that button. But the button is F4. So F4 will lock for us that range. So I will press F4 on my end. So when I press F4, you see that it locks for me all the columns and the rows. So that is what we call locking a reference in Excel. So this time when I drag, I will find myself that on every reference, the range is not moving. Even when I move to the last one, double click here to get the formula, the range still is not moving. It is still intact from D4 to D35. So there we go. That's how we lock references. If there is any question, maybe someone can ask. Then someone may ask, you may ask yourself, why don't we lock only a column, rows, since the column is 1, since the column is D4. We always do it uniform in case you wanted to drag this to the right. So in case I wanted to drag this to the right, you'll find that still the range is the same, but the reference has changed from G, now it has come to H. So that's what we look at when we are locking both the row and columns. So this is count if. So you can create your summary. When we reach a point of creating dashboard, you'll find that you will need search function to create summaries, which means I can go ahead here and easily select this, maybe go to my insert and I insert a chart. Very easy, like this. So you find that it is easy for you to insert a chart because they have already made for you a summary. It has already counted for you and you have a summary from here. Now, if I go ahead and change maybe this and I change it to DM, you see the chart automatically changes automatically. If I remove, I change maybe CA, California, that is having more, I change it to, I can change this. You check, the chart is dynamic. Let me get this, copy it and fill it here. Let's have this around 4, such that you get the difference I'm talking about. You see, as your team is changing data in the back end, it is dynamic because the function you used is always dynamic. It doesn't need your attention when they are doing the data entry. So I can go ahead and undo this. You see, when I reduce the number, the graph automatically changes. So that's when you find yourself that you're having a dashboard that is dynamic. So that's why we are beginning with these fundamentals before we reach that part of having those insights of dashboards, pie charts, what. We need to know this because this is the back end. This is the core to everything. Now, if now you're considering more than one parameter, you have been told now this is count ifs. We want to count, I don't know whether here these rows we have duplicates. Just a moment. Just a moment, I'm checking for duplicates, but I can have questions coming through. Nope. I can have questions coming through as we go on.
There's a bit tutorial.
Yes, go ahead.
The count if is not, can you just put it in like our data we use? Maybe I'll understand it well. By using your data, I'm not
Okay.
getting it well.
You're requesting if we use.
Maybe, but just verbally, can just highlight it in, let's say, the ODIM data, just verbally.
You want to record me that I still have ODIM data. Anyway.
No, okay, like a track and maybe
No.
something.
Let me get ODIM data, it's fine, don't mind. I'm going to.
So you went with the company data, eh?
I'm going to, because I was company. Yeah, sorry, that is just a joke. I'm going to get out data for, maybe I'll pick out all the numbers. Okay, let me bring the whole of this data here. So I'm bringing data from ODIM. So I've copied it from a report that once came from ODIM. Don't say I still have access to ODIM. So I'm going to paste values here. Just a moment. Sorry, guys. We can proceed. Sorry, I had an interception of someone. Now, I was copying data and pasting here. I can repeat that, maybe. So we are copying data from ODIM. Pasting, I will paste them as values. Then after that, You remember we used to do those dynamics of removing blank rows, removing blank columns. I'll do it in a quickie. So I'll remove duplicates. That's one. Then I go to find and select, go to special, you go to blanks. I want to remove the blank columns. So when you go to blanks and say, okay, it will select for me the blank columns. Then I will say, delete the blank columns. You delete once. The moment I delete, they are out. I know there is some data that is distorted. That is not what we need. So I will try to clean up this. So we shall be doing this cleaning of data maybe in the next week. But for now, we shall focus on these fundamentals. So, okay, here, then guide and delete. So this is now a concentrated data already we get from ODIM, right? Now, sorry. Now we want to count. Let's say, let's use a good example. Don't mind on the headings. They have tried to move a bit, but this is the item. So we want to count the item. So what I'm going to first do, I'll first create a summary. How do you create a summary? There are two ways how you can create a summary. The first way is copying the whole column, taking the whole column somewhere, paste it there, then you remove duplicates. You go to data. I want to create a summary. You go to data, then you'll always find a button of remove duplicates. So I'll remove duplicates. That is the only column I have. Boom, there we go. So this was not what we wanted because of the data we are dealing with. It flipped that way. So now here we go. I don't remember the one who asked the question, but this is what you had requested for. Now here we are going to count. From this report, we want to count how many transactions are having Fundi 50, how many transactions are having multipurpose, how many transactions are having superset 50 kg. Now here I will put the count. So, so I will do equals to count if, we go down and pick if, then select the range. Where is your range? I'll go to the other report. That's where my range is. Go to the other report, and this is my range. So I'll select the whole of column U like that. Then comma, because when you come here to the formula bar, when you're picking data from another sheet, it is not always good to take the cursor back to the other sheet to find your formula. Your formula will always follow you in the formula bar. When you go back and click, you're going to distort everything. So you can always go in the formula bar and continue from there. What is the criteria? After putting a comma, that's when you go back, because the criteria is on the other sheet. This is the criteria. So I will click on the criteria, which means I'm telling my data, or I'm telling my function that going in the other sheet, column U, then count for me anything that is this, is related or is equal to this. The moment I enter, it will tell me that Fundi 50, they were 26. So when I drag this one downwards, it will give me the numbers. Multipurpose bulk was 10. So if I go there, I will take this. Let's filter and see whether we are doing the right thing. So I'll put my filter, then let's filter out the multipurpose. Sorry, let me pick it first. So let's go and filter and confirm whether it is really the number. So if I bring this here, so here, this is what I filtered out for multipurpose. So when we count them, it will automatically tell you the count is 10. And this side, multipurpose is 10. Let's count another one randomly. This Fundi 50 kg WP, copy that, come this side in the filter, paste that, and here we go. This is 3. So when you go the other side, it is 3. So it becomes easy for you at the end of the day, to summarize out your data, just by a single formula, count if. So that's how we use count if. I don't know whether I've answered the question, but at least I think there we are comfortable, most of us, because the other steps were confusing us. But if there is any question, please raise your hand. I think going forward, I should use this data for now.
I want to first understand, Sabit, I want to understand if Twalib has gotten his point right, because from my understanding, I guess what Twalib wanted to understand is, for example, the data you've used there, is it, how easy is it for him to do the count and know that there are 5 entries if I'm using maybe the delivery numbers on this report you've used? And other than saying multipurpose is 5, then this is 2, but where can he, because you remember when you said you do a control shift and then the down arrow for him to understand how many entries he has in that Excel. I guess that's the most important thing that we wanted to understand, basically, if I'm not wrong.
Okay, it's fine. We can also go through that. That one actually was count. Okay, how do we do a full count of the Hodim? Let me put here the Hodim. Let's use the count. Anyway, we did this before, and I told you that the best to use is count A, which means if you go to count the Hodim transactions, I will use the count A. There we go. Then I will come to Hodim. Then I'm going to use my item because it is what we had focused on. Select the first one, as how we had said, Control Shift down arrow, it will run up to the end. The moment runs up to the end, just enter, because this is just counting. It's telling us we have 165 transactions, and when we sum here, indeed there are 165 transactions. I think that's what maybe you were talking about. Then on going forward, maybe let's look at count ifs. More questions can be coming through. Now, it's good now we have Hodim data, which we are going to leverage on. Let's see whether we can have another option. But this data is having only submit Christopher. Well, okay. Let's use these are transporters, carriers. So if they tell you that count for us by item and split by carrier, that is another question that may come through. Count by item and split by carrier. Actually, I wanted where I have like 2 options or few options for us to understand this right, but still we can go with this. So which means we are going to count items at the same time, counting like you count Fundi, Shaka 1. Now you have to look another Fundi with Shaka, another Fundi with Shaka. Then after that, you come back with multipurpose with 2, 3, like that. But you can do it with a formula, just a click away. Now let's get our list of carriers. As I told you, the simplest way, I don't want to go in many formulas now. The simplest way to get unique values, copy the whole column you feel like you want to get unique values, paste them here. Then after that, you go to data, remove duplicates. You remain with only unique values. Oh, the transporters are very many. Shall we manage to put them on, I wanted to make these as columns. Okay. We can use Shaka as a reference here. So we can use Shaka as a reference, and I'll copy the items here. So we have items here, and looking at Shaka as a reference, and at the end of the day, we need to get the count for Shaka. So now, how do we do that? This time we are going to use the count ifs, because we have this option 1. This is the first criteria we have, item. Then another criteria we have is the transporter. We can even have another transporter such that it doesn't seem like we are looking at one. So we can have another transporter here. So when you're creating this report, you can just spread it to the more transporters you have. Now, we want to count how many transactions of Fundi does Shaka have, how many transactions of Fundi does Manson have, going downward. How do we do that? Using the count ifs. So it is equal to count ifs, right? Open brackets. I told you, you can press a tab button. It will open for you the bracket. Now it is asking me, please give me the first criteria range. So we have two criteria. We have a criteria for item and a criteria for transporters, which means even when we go the other side, we have a range for item, we have a range for carriers. So what do I start with? It is your choice. So I'm going to start with item. So they want the first criteria range. I will go to Codim and click on the criteria range, which is item. So I can click on the first one, Control Shift downward. So after that, you go ahead and lock this. I've told you how they lock this. How do they lock it? By pressing F4 on your keyboard, such that my range will always be U2 to U166, comma. Then they're asking me what is criteria number 1. Criteria number 1 is this one, Fundi. And this one I will not need to lock it because I will be dragging downwards to look at even the other one. So we are done with criteria number 1 and its range. Then, because remember this is ifs, you can put as many criterions as you can. But for us, we are going to use only 2. So you put a comma. Now they're asking you, give us criteria range number 2. Criteria range number 2, it is where we have our transporters. We shall go to the Hodim report and select the range for transporters. We shall start with the first one, Control Shift downwards, and there we go. Still lock this. Lock this by pressing F4 on your keyboard. There we go. Now the range is done, comma, it will ask you now for the criteria number 2. What is the criteria number 2 we're looking at? Is this Shaka. And the moment you do that, you're done because I want only 2 criterions, I enter. It will tell me that in the other data, Shaka has 2 transactions of Fundi 50 kg. So when I run this downwards, it will tell me that actually Shaka didn't do any material in that report, specific report we have. We are going to check for clarity. Now we go to Manson. Now someone will ask you, you'll ask yourself, do I have to pull this one to the right? The question is yes and no. Now when you check here the range, when you click in your formula, it will always give you the reference. You see we are tagging on that and that. Let's go to the end. When we check you click in the formula, it will tell you that the reference is this and this. Ideally, since we are dragging downwards, you see even this one was coming with our formula. The dragging was, the reference was moving a step as we are dragging. So that now tells you that when you're having this a constant and this a constant, so we have also to lock this because at every point we have to be pointing at this cell, which means for this cell, which is H24 has to be locked this time because it is also a constant. We are only dragging for the items, but the transporters has to be a constant. To make anything a constant, you press F4 to lock it. Such that this time, when I drag downwards, you see there is a change now. Here we have picked a 6 because when I click in the formula again, it will show me that we are still picking from Shaka. Rather than before, I'm going to undo. I show you what we had done before. Before, when you click in the formula, it tells you that this time you came with the reference. You're referencing now to 0, which is wrong. So, sorry. So here we go back on the range, we lock it. Any question up to here? So when we drag that down, now let's make a reference from the other side. We check ourselves. Let's go and check Shaka multipurpose 50. So I'll first take multipurpose. So we are going to go to our raw data. We check whether we are doing the right thing. So I'll put here filters. Then I will first filter out multipurpose, right? Then after multipurpose has filtered out, I'll filter out Shaka. Like this. So indeed, you'll find that Shaka has 6 transactions of multipurpose. So now you see that here we are doing 2 checks, which means at some point you can also do 3 checks. You check a month from a date, you check the item, you check even the carrier. So you find that you're doing 3 criterions. You're doing a criteria of a date, a month, a date, an item, and a carrier. So that's how we deal with count if. Let's complete with Manson. Now, if I drag this one on the right, is it giving us the right answer? Why I said a no or yes? So when you go to the formula, you'll find this time that this range has moved. 25 has moved to the right because of drag to the right. And the H24 is a constant. Remember, we locked it, it can't move. It is still at Shaka. Now, in a pro way, how to adjust this? How do you adjust it? By dragging these and moving them to their part like this. You can drag them. The moment you drag, you're changing the formula the other side. So that's an option number 1. Option number 2, if I drag this to the right, then you go ahead, changing the formula with the reference, you need it to be constant too. We needed this, the blue one, to stay at G25, which means we shall change this back to G25. The moment you change it, goes back. We want this to stay at, to come to Manson's, which is I24. So you change the H from H to I. You'll see it moving. So still when you enter the same thing. So there are 2 options you can do this. Then the third option is repeating the formula again. So that's the third option I'm going to do for my friends who maybe have not got the first option. So I'll do equals to, we repeat again. If you didn't understand on the first one, just pay attention on this. So I will even, I think I can zoom it out. So we are starting equals to count ifs, because we are going to consider more than 1 criteria. What is the criteria range number 1? Our criteria, we are using items, which means the range number 1 is item here. So I told you last time that if you know your data, you're not going to put anything below. You know, there are some people, they have data like this. Below there is some other data coming maybe from SAP. If you know that you're not going to do that, it is always easy for you to select the whole row. It is always easy to select the whole row. Sorry, the whole column. Then you put a comma. What is our criteria? You go back to your summary sheet. This is our criteria. So after doing that, we are going to criterion number 2. So we start with the range number 2. Number 2, we are looking at the transporters. We shall go to ODIM and select the whole. The moment you do selection of a whole column on one bit, all of them you have to select whole column. If you select range, the ranges have to be the same. If the ranges are from R2 to 166, all of them should always be U2 to U166, V2 to V166. The moment it is not that, it will always give you an error. So here we have selected the whole range of the carriers. Now we select the criteria. So we shall come here to our summary report. What is the criteria we are looking to is Manson. And you can go ahead and enter, but remember, we have the other bit of locking. So I will not need to lock when I selected the whole column. When you select the whole column, you don't need to lock. So what I need to lock now is this, because I need every number here should be picking from, or should be looking at Manson's as the second criteria. So you can highlight that, then you press F4 on your keyboard. It will automatically put a $sign in front of I, a $sign in front of 24. So there you go, and we run this downwards, it will give us the numbers. So it means we have one Manson who did only multi-purpose. So actually when we come here and select out Mansons, it will just come as one transaction as how you have seen it. Only did multi-purpose. So you can go ahead and do the same with the other transporters, which means if we pick another transporter here who is Maldima, we put Maldima here. So it becomes easy now for me now to adjust this. I'll select this to the right, then check my formula how it is picking. So I'll check my formula has moved to this, you drag this, put it back. If you can't manage to drag, edit from the sheet itself. But remember, here, this column shows us it has moved to V, which means when you come this side, it shows you that it has moved to V, which is not a requirement. So because it has moved from this to this, since I moved one step to the right. So you should always take that into note. So there is also another option of going to the formula bar exactly in the formula bar, copy the formula, enter and leave that cell, come where you want to put the formula. Let's say here there was nothing. Where you want to put the formula, paste it there, then now start adjusting the formula the way you need. Because here you'll have a few things to adjust. Already this is in position. I only have to adjust Manson's and I shift this to Maldima. There are two options, changing I to J, or let me undo this. Undo. Or another option, copy again. So there are two options. You can always edit, change this to J, or you drag this Manson here. You see this box, red box. Drag it very well. Just point your cursor in the right position, drag it and take it to another range. It will automatically change. So when I drag Maldima down, you always have to test your formula whether it is right by clicking. You sample space any other data you have got, only any other value. Click in the formula to check whether it is right. Yes, it is picking Maldima and it is picking this, which is right for that cell. So you'll see Maldima has only two transactions, one for superset, another one for multipurpose. So when we come this side and check Maldima, like that. So these are the two transactions, one superset and one power max. So guys, that's how you do count ifs when you have more than one criteria. Now, the same thing, I know we have taken a lot of time here, but I just wanted you to understand the difference between count, count A, count blanks, count if, and count ifs. Now, the same thing, we are going to use it for sum and sum if. We shall use the same for average and average ifs. So as how you see it here, we have sum ifs, sum A, we have average ifs, we have maximum ifs, we have random. This one is just incognito. You can always use it when you need it. It just generates random data for you. Okay, just 5 minutes for you to take a drip of water as I get questions from the audience before we drop onto other functions, that is sum ifs and average ifs. Any question or any supplement? If you understood it another way and you feel like the 32 people here have to get that option, how you perceive it, please, you can raise your hand, or if there is any comment or anything in the chat, Susan, you can go ahead and read it. Just in 2 minutes, 3, we can switch to another function.
No questions yet in the chat.
Okay, one has come in.
Yeah, Rachel.
Yes. Yeah, you need to make life easy. So that is it. You can take a drink of water. We still have 3 minutes. Then before we drop onto something else.
Actually, Chris, this is someone. I think the option of dragging the cursor to the right and I think is the easiest, and it's a shortcut than repunching a whole formula and then locking it again, because you highlighted the 3 options. So to me, I feel moving the cursor to the right is a better option.
Okay.
If probably you're dealing with complex data.
Yeah, but what I need you to understand that always any option you use, you should keep in mind that you always have to check yourself whether the formula is picking right as you needed it to pick. You've seen always I've been clicking in the formula bar, then I was checking where is it picking from. Excel will always highlight for you. The colors you see here in boxes, they are the colors that are on top in the formula bar. So even if you have 70 criterions, every criteria will be given its own color. So you can always do a check on your end to make sure that it is picking right. Just sample out in your data. You take the feeling like, yes, I wanted Malidima to compare with Fundi 50, and this is what it is giving me. Okay. Any other question?
There's a suggestion in the chat.
Yes, I've seen it. Yeah, thanks, Ivan. I think this is cool. We can always have groups to do a recap. Tomorrow, I will be sharing, because we shall be done with these formulas. I hope so. I'll be sharing with you a document with all the formulas for you to try out. I'll put for you the scenario which is complete, then you try it on your end, whether you can reproduce it. In this, there is no cheating. The moment you cheat, you're cheating yourself. So the moment you copy and paste the correct ones to make them yours, it is all about your learning. So that suggestion is fine, and me, I pass it. So we can always create group amongst ourselves and we do reviews of this. Or even when you leave this, just get another data that is anonymous, either run it today from the report and check yourself. Check manually and check with your formulas whether they are catching the right thing. I think it is already 30 minutes. Let's do another marathon of 30 minutes. We look at sum if. So I'm going to look at sum if, then we shall look at also sum ifs. So we shall use the same data as how we used the data before. I will not use this incognito data that people are not understanding. I will use the same data here. I will drag it down here. And I put, this is going to be sum.
Sabiti?
Yep.
Nathan here.
Yeah, please go ahead, Nathan.
let's analyze, for example, the trips that are per transporter and maybe the tonnage. So looking at tonnage made per transporter, and let's see the data now.
Yes, okay, it's fine. Now, yeah, that's a good suggestion. Exactly, your question comes when we need it. With tonnage, we shall have to focus on some. So I will take this. Hope I'm not missing out anything. Ishaka here. Okay. Oh, I can pick the data again by using a formula. There is a formula in Excel, which is called unique. You can always use it. It picks unique data from. I'll pick carrier. That is. Now, you see how Excel reads the back end, that even though you put a formula that is carrying out the whole range, even though you had filters, for it doesn't mind with your filters. For it will go inside that data and pick for you the data. So here I was just picking the unique values of the carriers. So we shall go with this, and I will leave it dynamic. Now, here we are talking about getting some. Okay, I will add can insert more rows here. So we are looking at quantity. Okay, now we are all used to sum. We are all used to summing, but there is where sum doesn't work. When you come to this sheet directly, and you got the bottom of the tonnage. Sorry, the other time I flipped these things. So I will just have to rename this. Just quantity. Okay. So just making sure that everything is quantity. Yeah, right. So if you want to sum, to use a formula as sum equals to sum. Now, when I put equals to sum, you look at these formulas. There is sum if, there is sum ifs, there is sum product, there is sum frequency, there is sum times 2. I mean, these others are financial summing, so I may not go into depth of that. This one is database summing, which I may not look at, but let's look at the top ones. Sum ifs. Sum product is more so like, we shall look at it. So starting with sum, when you're summing from directly where the data is, like this, and you select the whole of this, Control Shift down arrow, we already looked into that. Enter, it will give you the total tonnage. Let me increase on font. So it gives us the total tonnage. Then there is another option, even if you don't use the sum directly. When you have your data like this and you want to get a quick sum, you see where in home, on the right, there is always auto sum. So when you click on that auto sum, for it will select for you the range. When you enter, it gives you the answer. You get? So that's why it is called auto sum. There is auto sum, there is auto average, auto count, auto max, auto min. So if you don't want to do this, now remember, now we are going to a criteria looking to the transporters. Considering transporter A, how much are they having in quantity? Now there you can't do it from here because that is already a summary. I know some people are thinking, why do I have to do this yet we have pivot tables? When we reached pivot tables, you also take the pros and cons of why I have to use this, not the pivot tables. Because the pivot tables also have its own technicalities where you can't use them easily to do simple analyzing like this. So now we are getting quantity using the sum. So quantity using the sum. So here I've already shown you the sum, the other end. that sum works for, you work from the data itself. But when we come to the summaries, it is no longer sum, but it is sum if. Because every summation you're going to get, you're going to look at another criteria. This sum on top, it was just a matter of saying equals to sum. Then you go ahead and select the other side from here upwards and remove one like this. So that was the sum we had from V2 to V166. So this time we want to sum if. We want to sum what Shaka has. We want to sum what Q3 has in total going downward. The other time we are doing counts. This time we are doing sum. So you go ahead and type equals to sum if. The moment you do sum if, since we are using one criteria, sum if is enough. Don't confuse yourself with sum ifs. So I will press a tab. Now in sum, they first ask for range. The range they're asking for is the range where they can find Shaka. That's what it means. So then there is another, on the syntax, there is criteria. Then we shall come and click on the cell where there is the first criteria we are considering. Then there is sum range. What are we summing? You get? So that's what we are going to do. We are going to pick 3 parameters. So we start with the range. Where are we going to find the carriers? Come this side to ODIM. This is the range. I will click on the first one, Control Shift downwards. I told you there are 2 options. You can select the whole row or you can select a defined range. But you have to be skeptical enough that if this is going to be dynamic, that the team will be adding things here, you should make sure that you leave it to run the whole column. Like you select the whole column like this, such that even if someone added another data the next day, it will pick automatically. So when you select the whole column like this, it means going forward, all of them, all the ranges you need to pick from this side, you have to select the whole column. So I go ahead and do a comma. When I do a comma, they're asking now for the criteria. Where is my criteria? I find it here on the summary sheet. So I will come and click on the criteria. So the moment you click on the summary sheet, it automatically tags the sheet session. So the moment you just click anywhere, you're distorting your formula. You'll have to repeat again. So I'll come directly, click on this. Because this is going to be my first criteria I'm considering. Then what is next, comma? They want the sum range. What am I summing? You may have a lot of parameters, metrics here. You may be having quantity, maybe you have fuel, maybe you may have a lot of quantities. So this time we are summing tonnage. If you're having another column which is showing maybe edge, you want to sum the edge, you can click on it on another instance. So this time I'm selecting the whole column as how I did for the range. Then everything is done, I go ahead and enter. So it automatically tells me that, you know what? Shaka has a total of 290. So I will go ahead and drag this one downwards. So why am I dragging this one downwards without minding on locking the ranges? Because there is no range I'm locking. I used a full column. The moment we define a range, that's where you have to lock your range. But when you use a full column, there's no need of locking the range. So that's why here I will come directly and drag up here. There we go. Those are the summations. So if we try to sum here, auto sum, we shall find that this is the same answer we had here. So we prove ourselves that the total picked here is right. So that's how you do it. So when you check yourself with a random value you got, click in the formula, you see that it is picking Rwenzori and it is summing the other side for DMV. If I check on this, it is picking Human Cement Limited Uganda. So that is it. So This is one way how you can sum if. Now, looking at the syntax of sum if, we started with range. We went to criteria. We went to sum range. Now, what if someone else said, but still I can use sum if, because it is okay. You can use sum if even if you have one option. So let me use sum ifs equals to sum ifs. So when I use sum ifs this time, for it, it first inquires for me to put what am I summing. Then you can start putting your criterions one by one because they are unending. That's why Excel thought like, no, let's first ask this person to give us what we are summing. Then he can start selecting the ranges and criteria one by one. But the other time, because we are dealing with only sum, if they first told us to select the range, the criteria, then they asked for what are we summing. This time, that's the only difference between the two, and you have to note it. So when you come to sum ifs, for it, they first ask for the sum range. So this time, we are going to first click select what we are summing. Then after putting that, comma, then they will ask for the range. Still, I'm still on the same sheet. Where is my range? My range is here. I will select it. Then, comma, you go to the criteria number one. Now, criteria number one here in the summary is this number one. So, some ifs you see now it has another option of putting criteria 2. If I put another column, I go to criteria, I put another criteria 3, criteria 4. You get it has more, you can continue. But here, that's where we end because we have only one. So you are at liberty to close the bracket or not. Excel starting from 2013, I think 2010, it closes for you the bracket. The moment you enter, it closes. So when I drag this one downwards, boom. So we get the same thing. So you can always use sum ifs if you hope that you may have another criteria to add on your summary. Because imagine you had used sum if and they added you that also break that down by items. Sorry, by items, yeah, or materials. So I'm going to bring these materials here for the case of having sum ifs understood right. But do you have any question as of now?
Yeah, Sabiti.
Yes.
If at all we are to add the column for the number of trucks that maybe each transporter there performed in that data range, would it be repeating even if, for example, Nathan has one truck and he drove the trips, will be mentioning every trip that I did and it is the same truck, or it will be mentioning one truck? For example, if I want to know how many trucks Mansion is operated
with
in this month, how many trucks did they operate with to make that tonnage of, for example, okay, Shaka, to make a tonnage of the 290.
Okay, I get you. Now, there are two options. How many trips did Shaka ship for him to have 290? And how many unique vehicles or unique trucks did Shaka have? Those are two questions which are distinct. So the first one, let's count how many trips everyone did. Obviously, that one we have already done it. We are going to use the count if. So here I will say counting trips. Trips using count if. Using count if. So we are going to pick the trips for every transporter. How do we do it? We have already done this. I think it will be quick for us. We are counting if like this. So they're asking for the range. What range are they asking? Because we have Shaka here, we have to pick the criteria or the range where the transporters are. So I'll go back. So what you were asking, you may want to go to the trucks and select the range for trucks. No, because the criteria range is looking at transporters, which means I will click on transporters. Then I do a comma, It is asking for the criteria. I will come here and select on the criteria who is Shaka, enter. Then to tell me that Shaka did 9 trips. When I go downwards, those are the trips which were done. So these are the trips which were done in an assumption that we don't need to know which truck was on which trip. Sorry, whether there is a truck that did more than one, whether there were 9 trucks. So here you were not putting that into consideration. But if you want to count the unique trucks that were used, that is, you will have to first. Now that's where now we go away from using the formula count if, because count if doesn't have unique. That's when we bring in pivot tables. So when we reach pivot tables, the same question will apply. You will know exactly how many trucks Shaka had unique. I will take you through that. Currently, there is a formula which we can run here, but it is somehow complex, joining more than 3 formulas, which I don't need to introduce before we go to those formulas. But with time, I will bring this back and we shall answer that question. Like, it tells you how many trucks Shaka has in unique. If there are 2 trucks which ferried 9 trips, then we shall know that going forward. But currently, number of trips, if someone wanted to count them, here you go. The unique vehicles, it becomes a different scenario where you have to create Shaka on top, like how we did here. And you have all the trucks this side, then you count how many trucks or trips were carried by each truck for each transporter. So you can go ahead and traverse all that in the data you have using the same knowledge. I don't know whether there is any question. Some if with more than 1 criteria. Yeah, we are going for that. We are going for that. Okay. Now here, the criteria I want to use is, I want to use these items. Actually, sorry. In the field where I sit now, we call them items. Here now they are materials. Okay, now here I want to copy these and paste them here in columns, right? So how are we going to do that? Now here, that's where the expertise comes in. So, but it is something simple. So when you want to copy this data that is in vertical like this, and you want to paste it in horizontal, this is what you do. You copy the data, just say Ctrl+C. Then I want to paste the data starting from here. So I will go, you go to paste. You go to paste special, look for paste special where it is. Here it is. You click on it, or even if you don't go to paste special, there is always transpose here as a shortcut for you. But when you go to paste special, you'll always find it there. Here, transpose. So transpose means changing from by row to by column, or changing it from vertical to horizontal. So when I say transpose and paste, it's going to paste that data in the horizontal manner. So if I say wrap, I want to look at every item one by one. When I do anything and you don't understand, tell me to repeat it. Eh? So because here every material is hiding behind the other because of the column sizes, I can always go to wrap text. So when I say wrap text, it will wrap it with the width of the column. Now, here now we want to count how many fundi was Shaka having? How many multipurpose was Shaka having, or 2, 3, or going downwards? So the whole of this, we are going to do it as summation. I can merge this, then this is going to be sum ifs. So we go ahead and start. We are going to use the sum ifs. Now, That's why they first tell us, please give us what you want to sum before you start doing your criterions. So what do we want to sum? We want to sum the quantities or the volumes, comma. What is criteria number one? Criteria range number one. The range number one, you can either start with material or you can go with carrier first. So I start with carrier, comma. Then I go to my summary sheet. I pick the carrier. The carrier is here. The first one, Shaka, comma. Then we go now to criteria range number two. What is criteria range number two? Material, right? So I'll select the whole of material. Comma. What is your criteria number two? What do we start with? You go into your sheet, we are starting with funding. Are we together? Now, here I will enter and it will give me that Shaka did 67 tons of funding. Now, something I will want always when you are spreading out data like this, something I want you to put in context is first locking the references or the ranges. Now, when we drag downwards, what are we locking? When we drag downwards, it means when I'm dragging downwards, I want the carriers to change, which means when we are dragging downwards, we shall need this G 42 to change to 43 to 44 to 45 going downwards, which means what is locked here? We are locking now one thing. We are not locking both. We are locking the column. I will put it manually. Are we together? Which means when we are moving downwards, we shall never leave this column going on the side. So we are locking the column G. Then, when we come to the material, as we move downwards, we don't want this row to change from 41, which means as we move downwards, the row will remain 41. But as we move to the right, the columns will change, right? Which means I would have locked both, but since the first thing we don't need the row to change, because all of them are in row 41. So I will not lock the column, but I will lock the rows. So I'll put a $sign in front of 41. If you have not understood this, please ask. So I will enter. So it will give me 67 tons for funding, but I've taken in consideration my dragging left and right. But if you don't put that into consideration, which means every column you're going to reformat the formula for that column. So when I drag downwards, I'll get that. So let me first check myself here. When I click there and click in the formula, am I still on the right channel? Yes, because now I'm looking at Renzori Fondi. That one is good. Let me drag now this one on the right. So when I drag this on the right, let me first check myself. When I click here, am I still on the channel or on the syntax we are using? Yes, because this time I'm on multipurpose and Shaka is fixed. That's why I was telling you that we had to change here to log 41 such that the column will keep changing. But here we locked the column, which was remaining G, because it is the row that was kept was changing from 42, 43, 44. So that's how we do it. So now I can just do like this: drag to the right, drag to the bottom. Very simple. Am I getting the right thing? So let's check our source. Check here. We are dealing with the same thing. Viva and here. Why is everything funny? I'm getting zeros everywhere. Let me see if I do.
I think we locked Bondi.
Yeah, you may be right. Let me check. Let me check. So we go to any of them. We check. I think it is not. You see, this is picking multipurpose, and yeah, here it is. Now, as you're looking at looking here in your summary sheet, remember as you're moving, the other columns where you're picking from are also moving to the right or left. So when you check summary number 2 here, okay, number 1, we used the column. Our ranges are coming from column B in the ODIM report and column. Our sum is column B. The first range is column R, and another range is column U. But when we come to the second one, okay, let's pick another one here in the middle. You see, we have reached column AB. We are in column X. We are in column AA. Why? Because we didn't lock the ranges here. So I will come and lock all these. So you press the F4 on your keyboard, you lock that range. Why are we locking these ranges? Such that as we are dragging in our summary, the other data where we are picking it from, it should remain the same column. It should not change. So even this F4, there we go. Now, if I drag this to the right and I drag this bottom, what we should get as a total of all this should be what we got here. So if I auto sum here, we are testing ourselves. So our total should be this. Now, if you want to sum all these, you can click here, you select this, you just go to auto sum. It will put the sum on every column automatically. Let me undo. If I want to sum all these materials for all the materials, the sums for all the materials, I'll click there, go on auto sum. There's no need of me putting a formula, but I will find a formula has been inserted automatically. They will insert the formula for me. That's the use of the auto sum. If you're still learning formulas, you can come here, you do the sum. No. It is equal to sum. Then you select the whole of this, enter. Then when you drag this to the right, it will give you the same answers. By that, you see now the several steps I'm doing. So the shortcut is always, if you know that you don't have blank columns, blank rows here, just select the last column, the last cell, and do auto sum. And if there is any blank cell in the middle there, it will not give you the auto sum. Most of the cases, I'm using 365, it may give me this, but when you're using like 2013, it may not do it. It will skip because you have a blank row. So I think there we go. Any question? I know our time is gaming. Any question then? If we sum the whole of this equals to sum, we want to prove whether we have that total. You can go ahead and sum like this to give you 4963.12, which is that, which means all the data has been picked. But that's how we use sum ifs. So you can also come here, do the sum, and select the whole of this range like this. Or you can test with the auto sum by clicking here, auto sum. It will select for you. But now the trouble is that it is picking another data on the side which we never wanted to sum. But that's not a problem. You can change it also from here that I want my data to start from K. You change that to K and it will come to K. There is another option. You can always drag here by that. You drag where you want it to start from, like this. You see, you can drag always. So we want it to start from there. When we sum this up to the end, it's that, and this sum has to also give us 4963.12. So that's how we use the sum ifs. It is very good to use. You can even add the third criteria if you're considering by month, you're considering maybe by vehicle. It's all up to you how you will want to summarize your data. But at the end of it all, what are we targeting? To make sure that we get a high level reporting. we analyze this data. Now here you can easily tell who was the highest, who did low. How can you tell that? Maybe this one is a bonus for this session. We haven't reached conditional formatting. You can always come on conditional formatting, you come and highlight, then you use this trend of colors. So you can use green to red, such that green is high, red is low, and it will give you that. So you can easily tell who is green here. It is Fundi for human cement and multipurpose 50 kg for a bus. Then others light green, the yellow, the amber, they are the intermediaries, then the others have zeros. So you can even tell that most of the reds are on Fundi and it is only done by one transporter. How do you tell that when you have summarized your data to this level? So that's how you can even analyze. You can go to your meeting with already a written narration that, you know what, our Fundi is being shipped by the on fleet, and it is only on fleet that is doing Fundi, just by the virtue of what I'm looking at. And you can also look at on fleet has been used on all the materials apart from multipurpose bulk, because we don't have maybe bulk, Power Max bulk, because maybe you don't have bulk, and Power Max 50 kg, which is same too. So here you can tell those insights when you have already put your data in this format. Then you can also give this one a conditional formatting if you want to look at which transporter is higher by selecting that row. Just go to conditional formatting. Higher is green because it's good for us. If higher is bad, then you use the second option. So I will use this, then it will automatically tell me that the first is Mark, followed by on fleet, followed by a bus. Then the least one, they are these ones. Cash, hardware, then printer. Then you can also come and put this one alone. We want to see by materials. So you can select only the materials, do the conditional formatting, come here, select this. So you can easily tell that we are doing a lot of multipurpose 50 kg and a list of Power Max bulk same too. So on what we have done, I have already got a story which speaks to data. It means that any decision to be done in that meeting, it is the story you'll have told. So the storytelling is good from when you analyze data. So it is from the simple formula, sum ifs, that has brought us up to this level. Rather than you would have gone to this data and get lost in all this data. By filtering and doing this and knowing who is higher, who is low, but this already gives us the insights. Guys, you can do the same. Now, what I want you to do on your end, go ahead and try the same for average if. Go ahead and try for max if. Max if is if you want to get what was the maximum if the transporter was Shaka. But even though all our data is 30-30, maybe you use another data that is not giving same figures. We have 30 and 35, most of them. Then go and try out with average ifs. So I'll leave that to you. Next time when we come, that is tomorrow, we are going to ramp up with the lookup reference functions. We have already done something to do with logical. Logical is, it is just a 10-20 minute walkthrough. Then we shall look at the text functions. Then I know date needs its own session. We shall do that as its own session. So that is a catch up for tomorrow. So here we go. I've stolen 5 minutes of your time. Apologies to that. But I will leave maybe 3 minutes. You can stay behind for 3 minutes. We listen to questions, compliments from the team, and I thank everyone that has been on the call. We have ended the call 34 members. We started 23, it means that people joined and didn't leave. So guys, that is it. I'll just wait for more 3 minutes to 5 for your commentary. I will stop sharing. In case there is a question that touches the sheet, I will share again. So that is it. Any questions? Those who came late, I can switch on my camera again, maybe. So, any question?
Gundi yatubuza ekibuzo atandika kutwanaabye tugende tunaabe.
Apologies that we have stolen some of your time, but it should be worth that. I know the formulas you would have put, like count if some, if I've used this for more than 10 years, I've been using data. But I know you should have picked at least one or two you have not done previously. The same thing should bring you in another session, even though we say what we are going to do, you have ever done it. Rachel, your hand is up.
Yes, my hand is up. Thank you, Chris. Very, I like to use light bulb moment. But yeah, thank you. I think for me, it has been very eye-opening as to why we lock cells. I've constantly locked ranges and cells. I didn't know why. But because I was told you lock. Now it makes a little bit, actually a lot more sense, not just a little bit. My inquiry, those, Chris, is and I don't know if you probably have it planned on your on the schedule on the program, but how, I don't know if it's how to use macros. You know how we run reports from a system, and then it's a repeated action of running that report, and then you transport it to Excel, and then you, what you called, I think, transforming, removing certain columns, certain rows that are idle, or deleting certain rows, whatever. Is there a way of automating such a process? I keep hearing macros, use of macros. I don't know if that's it, but do you have that on the program, please? A big.
Yes, we have something related to that. That is on advanced Excel, where we shall look into Power Query. But as we go, as time moves, the trends, the technology is changing. Actually, Chrome are losing, I can say, value, because there is now Power Query. We shall look at the macros. If I'm to say, we have boarded borders, you are on an aeroplane, but we shall reach there. So it is on our plan. It will be part of the introductory on Power Query. We shall go through the macros, where we shall create a report, give it a macro, automate it. Every morning, you just have to click a button and you sit and wait for the data to refresh. So that we shall do. Please, just stay tuned.
Stay tuned, sir. Thank you so much.
Welcome. So thank you, Ivan.
Sabit, thank you. Susan kindly shared the recording so that those who joined a little bit later and where we missed, we try to review again and we practice.
Okay, thank you. Then the other bits, maybe I will have a call with Susan tomorrow. We see how we can manage some of the data we shall be sharing. This file I've been working with, I'm going to put it in that file. You'll find in the recorded sessions, we are going to put session 1, we put the date. So every time you want a date, you'll go there and find everything that was used that day. I think that is it. I may not, anyway, I'm going to share even before I board myself to come. So I think that is it. It is already 10 minutes up your time. Have a good night, all of you. We meet tomorrow, same time. Let's try to keep time and let's come planned. I think it will be more insightful and we shall do a lot. Bye-bye.